guys, I know that this is going to be up really late today, and I apologize for the lateness, but there was a lot of drying time with this. So my cover for this journal is the original cover. It's a very thin paper cover. It's not heavy. It's not thick cards. It's cardstock, I think, basically. This is a great cover then to really layer on the layers and get it really thick because it's so thin to begin with. And hopefully it'll help stiffen it up a little bit. So I first start out by just kind of taping it down a little bit so it's not sliding around everywhere while I'm trying to spread paint out and stuff. So I'm starting out with just some gesso because the cover is pretty dark and I really kind of want to lighten it up a little bit. I'm not trying to obliterate absolutely all of it, but as much of it, that I can get to kind of fade into the background will work for me. Plus I want to put layers on it and I want those layers to be translucent layers, and that usually works best if you have a lighter color underneath, at least for the particular effect I'm going for. So I start out by using some gel medium and a stencil to create some dimension. And I guess I kind of wasn't really thinking it through because by the time I got done putting all my layers on, I know that you'll still see it eventually, but it kind of flattened out. Also, it wasn't completely dry because it's really wet and humid. It's been raining for 2 days here, and it suddenly got cold in the middle of it. So everything doesn't, everything's damp. It doesn't want to dry. But nonetheless, I did put these couple of flowers on with just a heavy gel medium. And then I actually left and went grocery shopping, thinking that when I came home they would be completely dry. But when I came home, you could still see that they were white in areas. So it's not 100% dry, which means it's a good thing that this is going on Thursday and that the next video is not until Tuesday, because I'm going to need to let this sit for a while and get really, really dry. I might even, I'm going to make kale chips tonight, so I might even toss this page onto a parchment, some parchment paper on a cookie sheet in the oven once my kale chips are done, and let it kind of dry out a little bit. But I also wanted to showcase with this particular cover, because I think it was Terry, correct me if I'm wrong, Terry, who asked me, well, okay, what do you do with all those lovely, pieces of tissue paper that you have left over from when you're painting? So this is another way in which I really like to use them. So I'm going to use a patterned, really pretty, a lovely floral patterned tissue paper, but I want it to be a really subtle effect. Almost to the point where you kind of get the feeling of flowers, but you're not necessarily, is it so recognizable as a bunch of flowers. So I'm actually going to put the patterned tissue paper down upside down so that it's more muted, and then I'm even going to go further and layer another layer of white tissue paper, which will just kind of soften everything. Then finally, you know how if you're one of my followers or one of my students, or you just have been watching my videos for a long time, you'll know that I love to use paper napkins. Well, I think a lot of people just throw away those white plies that you get left over. Don't throw them away. Instead, pull them apart so they're single ply, because some napkins are only 2 ply, but some napkins are 3 and 4 ply. So make sure you're down to 1 ply. But when you have those individual plies, just lay it down on your craft mat, lay a stencil on it, spray some spray ink on it. A really great day to do it is when it's nice and hot. So hopefully it'll dry quickly. But I just I have Teflon sheets. I lay them on Teflon sheets. I spray through them, drop ink on it, splatter ink on it, whatever, until they've got color on them. And then when the napkin has, and I don't try to cover the whole thing. You want lots of those white transparent parts. And you don't necessarily want it to be completely recognizable. You'll understand when I show you the one that I'm about to use. But you just want to get some color on them. So they're really great for days when you're using stencils for something else. Now this is just the white tissue that, like I said, that kind of softens it. But when you're doing you're spraying inks through stencils and stuff like that in your journal, that's a great day when you've got kind of a wet stencil to just toss it onto one of those napkins on a Teflon sheet and just let everything dry. Mind you, try to do that with non-acrylic based sprays. You don't want to let it dry on your stencil on acrylic based sprays because it will stick. But I'm getting off track again. This is the sheet. So this was just drying up basically stencils, and that's actually just a single ply layer of a paper napkin. It's not tissue paper. Paper napkin doesn't go quite as transparent as tissue paper, and it has a lot more texture to it. It's a little bit thicker even. So that's one of the reasons I love to use them. They almost feel like cloth when it's completely dry. But this is how I use them quite often. I like the fact that it's mostly just transparent color. I like the fact that it's kind of a random abstract application of color. And I think that that gives a lovely kind of unplanned painterly appearance to it. So now that I've, finally realized that a lot of the texture got muted down because it was still wet and I, layered all that paper over it. So now I'm just going to go ahead and do some new flowers, still using the same flower stencil. The stencil is by Die Cuts with a View, in case you're wondering, and it's just called a template, 12 by 12 template, and it's the flowers template. So I'm just going to layer a couple of those flowers on there, and then I'm going to sit and let this dry, and we will finish up on Tuesday because I really need to let these layers really dry and cure. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll leave the last little bit to, just play some music, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you on my other channel for my Friday vlog tomorrow.